Good day and welcome to another edition of Insight. I'm Michael Sharp, and with me is Opposition Senator Floyd Emerson Morris. He needs no further introduction, so let's get straight to it. Who is Floyd Emerson Morris from your perspective?
Thanks very much, Michael. Well, Floyd Emerson Morris is what I call a blind Bartimaeus from St. Mary, Bailey'sville to be exact, 2 miles out of the parish capital of St. Mary, Port Maria. And I grew up in that community, went to Port Maria Primary School, went to St. Mary High School after passing my common entrance. And I developed glaucoma and got blind in 1989. And, having got myself rehabilitated at the Jamaica Society for the Blind, went to the University of the West Indies, did my studies there, and ventured into national politics in 1998, and I've not looked back since.
I guess I could end the program right here. You just put it all in a capsule, nice and fun. So let's start from the beginning, your early years in that Vale. What was life like for you? You were a youngster running around and happy and, what have you. So what's the story there?
Well, yes, life was quite exciting and filled with all manner of niceties as a youngster growing up in Bailey'sville. I played cricket, I played football, I played dandy shandy, I played dog and bone.
You didn't play Dolly House, though.
Yes, man. Yes, man. All of those things I played, And so it was a normal life for me amongst my young peers and siblings in the community. And I just lived the life to the fullest. And whilst I was at primary school, it was really an exciting period for me. I did very well at primary school. I was always competitive and among the top students in my age group. And so when I went to grade 6 and passed common entrance, it was understood that I was going to do well, and I did well and went to St. Mary High School.
Yes, and at St. Mary High School, did you feel that you're going to be the arts or the sciences? Which were you taking off on?
Well, I always had a desire for the business subjects. I wanted to be a chartered accountant. That was what I was yearning for whilst I was at high school. But by the time I started developing the sight problem, I realized that it was going to be difficult for me to become a chartered accountant. Well, at least so I thought at the time, because accounts have to do with you interacting with ledgers and journals.
Yes. A lot of numbers.
Absolutely. And so, I had to have a second thought about that because it required sight to do all of that. But modern technology has evolved. And, it enables a blind person to do absolutely anything that he or she wants to do. So.
Let me ask you this question. If it's insensitive, let it be. Do you think that you are defined by your blindness?
Absolutely not. There are some who would want to do that, but I don't allow that to happen. And I must tell you that there's nothing that is insensitive that you can ask me here. I don't hold any chips on my shoulder when it comes on to my blindness because it's a part of me. And I understand very well that as an individual who has succeeded, as a blind person, I have to be an ambassador. And I have to just tell it as it is,
Yes.
So
and you're known for that. But help me then.
Yes.
Now that you have cleared the bar for me, I can ask you, even if you're, still abusing, anyway, not at all. Help me as it relates to what age? Was it a sudden thing? Was it a process? Did you went at what age did you find out that the glaucoma was setting in and reversing your vision?
It was at age 14 because at that time I was in ninth grade in 1983. And I just went back to school the September, coming off the summer holidays. And I noticed that I wasn't seeing the blackboard clearly. Now, I mean, there was a crew of us who we would sit at the back of the class, right? And they say troublemakers don't sit at the front.
Want to go there.
So, I sat at the back of the class, and whilst there I noticed that I wasn't figuring out the material on the blackboard clearly. And I was a bit concerned, and I asked the teacher to move me up to the front of the class, and by then I realized that something is wrong. And over time it started to deteriorate, and I went to the ophthalmologist, and they detected that I had glaucoma.
Help me with this. I'm going to go forward quickly to come back. Mm-hmm. In light of modern day technology, if that were around at the time when you cited this, would it have made a difference in your situation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you see, in terms of the pedagogy, in terms of teachers imparting knowledge and preparing students for learning, they use different techniques. And at that time, they used to just use the blackboard to prepare the printed stuff, written stuff. With the modern technology now, teachers are required to prepare their stuff electronically, so they can do it via PowerPoint, they can do it via Microsoft Word, and in an instant, just press a button and send the information to their students, and the students would have it on their laptop. And so if I had the technology then, it would have made life much easier for me, because with the software that we have now, I use a software called JAWS, Job Access with Speech. It's an acronym for Job Access with Speech. Mm-hmm. And that software converts printed stuff into sound. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, whatsoever you write on the computer, it would read it back to me. And that is why when you see me in the parliament from time to time,
stuck in your ear.
I have the earpiece that I'm using to listen to stuff on my laptop.
So when, for example, they table a document,
yes,
and you get it via that, JAWS will take care of that for you.
But once it's in an accessible format, because if they send it to me in like a scanned PDF document, yes, it's going to pose some problems. Yes. But if they send it in an original PDF text version, and getting into some complications there.
Yes.
But if they send it in an original format, I can
manage that.
Right.
All right. Because I don't want to go ahead of myself, because I'm saving the parliament thing for a special piece. You know? Okay, let me go to the question that I really intended to ask, as it relates to the medical side of it, the science of glaucoma. Because nowadays you hear people going off to Cuba and coming back with stories that, listen man, this has really made a difference. Could it have been reversed, the blindness at the time, if we had the medical situation that exists now then? Would it have made a difference? Was it just it's going to happen anyway? Doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, certainly the science has advanced significantly since 1983, because there are different techniques that have been developed to cauterize the pressure in the eyes, and there's significantly advanced research to determine what is really causing the pressure in the eye to increase and henceforth damage the optic nerves. And whilst there is no cure for it at the moment, but certainly the technique has advanced significantly to minimize and reduce the impact in terms of the pressure on the eyes. So, you know, I would say if we were where we are now 30 years or so ago, I think the outcome would have been different. And I tell you, the doctors at the university hospital who discovered that I had glaucoma, at the time they told me that I was the first young person that they saw
14
with glaucoma. But they also notified me that if the pressure was not controlled, then it was going to lead to my ultimate blindness. And that is exactly what happened. You know, the pressure was not controlled.
But that's the pressure on the eye?
Yes, on the eye.
Okay, not blood pressure.
Not blood pressure.
Okay. Well, let me ask, is it hereditary? Is there anybody else in the family who would have had this?
Glaucoma, there are different types of glaucoma, and one of them is hereditary. And at the time when we did the family historical analysis, there wasn't any other family member with glaucoma. But we have subsequently discovered other family members who have had glaucoma and cataract.
Okay, going to ask you to hold on a little bit on that, and we're going to be right back on Insight. Welcome back to Insight. Today we are getting the full insight from Senator Floyd Emerson Morris. I'll call that Emerson. Some strength there. He tells us so far that at 14 years old, he had an onset of glaucoma, which led to his blindness. But we want to stay a little bit with that, because as he tells me that will not define him, because in spite of that, he has done success in all fronts. Help me, and this is where I want to bear down a little bit on you, because most 14-year-olds didn't go through what you go through. Most 14-year-olds are looking at life differently. Go back in the recesses of your mind. I want to know how you felt. I want to know if it led you to depression, how long it took for you to go fully blind. I want to know what Floyd Emerson Morris was feeling, that personal thought when you were alone by yourself. Did you cry? Did you get angry with God? Talk to me, Senator.
It was really a depressing moment for me, because I tell you, I loved football and I loved cricket. And I mean, I played them at high school from grade 7 to 8. But by the time we reached grade 9, you know, I was having problems, you know, intercepting the ball. And so, you know, I mean, I would look like a comic on the field, you know, when I miss the ball, and my friends would laugh, and, you know, and they would tease me because of the situation. And it was really debilitating to know that, boy, your sight deteriorating and the possibility of you losing it is real, you know. My grades were plummeting. I up to 9th grade, well, certainly up to grade 11, I was in all the top classes at St. Mary High School. I went to 7A1, went to 8-1, I went to 9-1, 10B1, and 11B1. right? So I was doing very well academically at high school. But, you know, I mean, when it really dawned on me that the sight is going now was when I did my CXC exams. And I went into the exam, and for the entire period that I was there, I just couldn't see anything on the paper. And, the tears just kept flowing, And I even remember once when I was giving the invigilator the paper, I was pushing it away from him. He was in one direction and I was pushing it in the other direction. And he realized that something was wrong, So it was really debilitating, and then I left high school and went home. Nothing to do. And the depression really intensified, and I ended up in a lot of quarrel and fight with my sister and her children, which caused my mother to put out my sister out of the house at the time, because, the thing was unbearable between us. There was constant fighting between us. And I was never angry with God. I questioned God, but I was never angry with him. I asked the question consistently, why me, why me, why me, why me? I was angry with people who made it look as if, boy, God was punishing me for some terrible sin that I had committed. And certainly, I don't think that I had done anything worse than anybody that I had come across, So, it was really a testing moment, a testing moment. But one thing that I understood very well in all of this was that if I got blind, I could not remain in Baileysville for the rest of my life.
Why not?
You see, if I remained in Baileysville, I would end up being poor and depressed. Because, you see, I tell people all the time, I'll make blindness look easy. I make blindness look easy, but it is not. It is a difficult engagement for the ordinary person. And the social barriers that are there in the society makes it even more difficult for a blind person. And there were deep social barriers that I had to confront in the society, in my community. There were people who were teasing me and laughing at me, and people who even put tires and bicycle and all of that stuff in my pathway whilst I was walking, because they wanted to see if I was blind for real or if my sight was deteriorating for real, So I couldn't stay in that sort of environment. And furthermore, I don't know when my mother would make the transition, and my mother is also my father.
Yes.
And so I had to prepare myself to live life without my mother, without my father, without my brothers and sisters. And doing so meant that I had to move out of Baileysville.
Move out and go where? Where were you thinking? That was home.
Well, you see, the thing is that, one, I've always been ambitious. And so education is an intricate part of me. So I knew that I had to go to get rehabilitated somewhere to learn to read and write Braille and to get my life back on track.
Who was your mentor? You knew this, but nobody knows this just so. Who did you speak to? Who gave you the guidance?
Well, you know, in those days, going through my depression and going through my Jobic moments, I turned to RGR. I used to listen to Doreen Samuels religiously. Because in those days you had a lot of morning stories,
Yes.
you know, Wrong Move, you had Castaway Line and all of those stuff that was coming on, and I used to listen to them. And then I heard Doreen doing an interview with a rep from the Jamaica Society for the Blind, and the person was talking about the wonderful things that the Jamaica Society for the Blind is engaged in. And, you know, they were talking about all of these students who were moving on to university and so forth. And I said, aha, that is what I want to hear. And I decided that I was going to call Doreen Samuels because I wanted to find out how I could do it and how I could make the transition. And I went to, in those days, 3 persons in the entire Baileysville had a telephone. All right? So, you know, young people must understand, you know, that when they come and they have cell phones, left, right, and center, they must know where we are coming from, you know? Everybody have a cell phone that they can call and talk now. But in those days, 3 phones existed in...
Some total.
Yes. And I went and I spoke to Doreen, and she gave me invaluable information. And that's why people who are in media must understand that they have an awesome responsibility in imparting information and knowledge to people. And Doreen, I never knew Doreen, but that little information that she imparted to me transformed my life for eternity. And I am eternally grateful to Doreen because it was that information that I utilize now to say, hey, as a blind man, I can go back to school, I can go and learn to read and write Braille at the Society for the Blind, I can restart my education and then go to the university. And that was where my love now came in for radio broadcasting.
Ah, yes.
Right? And she told me about Patrick Lafayette, who was working on Fame FM at the time. And I said, hey, yeah, man. Yeah, man, I am going to get going. But, you know, there were other rigidities that I had to deal with. Eh?
Yes.
I mean, financial resources were lacking. And my mother was just a dressmaker, and she's a political activist of no mean order.
I'm going to ask you to hold there because we're going to transition into the political side of you when we get back on Insight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Insight. Our special guest this morning is Opposition Senator Floyd Morris, and he wanted to be a broadcaster. Well, what happened there? Why didn't you not become a broadcaster? You mentioned the money never enough.
Well, you know, I did venture into radio broadcasting, doing a stint on another radio station owned by the University of the West Indies, you know. So, I mean, I did it for a while, focusing primarily on disability issues. The program was titled Seeing from a Different Perspective. You know, but the point that I was making earlier was that there wasn't money around, and so I had to devise a strategy to really earn money to restart my education, and that is where my poultry business came in. And I got some money from an aunt in Canada, was very supportive of me those days, and you know, I started to raise my own chickens, and you know, the then member of parliament, Horace Clark, came in and gave some support, which allowed me to expand. So I was expanding the business to the point where I was raising about 500 chickens, you know, batches of 250, so that I would never run out of stock. Eh? And then when the business started to earn for itself, I said, now is the time to make the move to come to Kingston. And I did that in 1991. Went to the Jamaica Society for the Blind, learned to read and write Braille there. And within 5 weeks, I successfully completed the Braille course.
Okay.
And now I decided that I was going to register at Michael Evening College, where I went and I registered for my O-level subjects. I did those, 3 of them that in 91, 92, was successful in those 3 subjects. The next year I went back, registered again for 4 subjects, 2 A-levels at this time, because I was preparing myself to go to university, you know, to do media and communication. And I passed those 4 subjects again, and then qualified for the University of the West Indies, and I did the entrance exam for Carmack at the time, and was very successful. So I had a number of successes going for me in consecutive order. And so I decided that I was going to go into the University of the West Indies, and a number of individuals chipped in and assisted me. And I must tell you, importantly, that whilst I was doing my GCE O and A-level subjects, I never had a single dime in my name to pay for them, because the monies that I was earning from the chicken business was sufficient to pay my rent in Kingston and buy food and my daily expenses, but not to extend to deal with that, you know. Yes. And I tell you, I mean, I realized that there was 2 outstanding St. Mary High old boys who were actively involved in the media at the time.
Let me guess one.
And, okay. You know, one of them is the current managing director for the RGR Gleaner Communication Group, Gary Allen. Yes. And I knew Gary from high school because, you know, Gary was my head boy. He was champion boy in terms of athletics and all of that sort of thing. And he was a decent human being whilst at high school. When you know, I mean, Gary was walking around and our year group saw Gary and we were giving trouble. You know, just a look. Just a look and, you know, it's over, you know?
He still gives that look.
So there was maximum respect from for him. Yes, and I called him, both him and Patrick Harley, who was working at the time. And, you know, I mean, he decided that, they both decided that they were going to help, and they brought me the money to pay for my subjects, and, you know, I was able to do that, and then went on to the University of the West Indies. And at the university, I said, boy, look, you know, I reached this far by faith. Mm-hmm. I have to make sure that I do all of those individuals who have invested in me proud.
Yes.
And I work off me butts, man.
Steel.
Yes, man. And I mean, I did very well, man. Very well. I mean, at the end of my first year, I ended up with an honors degree. And I got 2 scholarships at the undergraduate level, the Workers Bank Scholarship for a student with disability that have excelled, and the Circle K International Scholarship. And when I graduated, because of how well I did at the undergraduate level, I was awarded 2 scholarships by the university, a postgraduate scholarship and the Sir Frank Worrell Scholarship. And I was able to pay for my postgraduate degree.
I like how you hit that pay for it. I was able to pay for it.
Yes.
I don't have to go back to anybody. this time I'll do it.
Absolutely, you know.
Yes.
And it was whilst I was at university that I had a personal encounter with then Prime Minister Patterson. He had come to speak with the students on the campus at the SSLT. And I had an intense interaction with him over education. And he was impressed by my interaction, although he was stunned at the time, you know. But
can't beat him joining. Or make him join you.
Yes, yes. So, you know, by the time that happened, he decided that he was going to invite me into national politics, and I was involved with the campaign of '97. Then he wanted a youthful voice and a face in the parliament.
Yes.
And I was appointed a senator in 1998, of which I've been serving since, save and except for an interregnum between 2007 and 2011, when I was out of the Senate. But, you know, I am back, and I've been serving since 2012.
Yes, and you ascended to president of the Senate, and everybody was like, OMG, you want to see how this is going to work? No, but I'm not going to say, oh, I get trouble. But I hear you call people by name. So tell me about your blindness has been a blessing.
Yes, you know, because I never allowed it to be a curse. I never allowed it to be a curse.
Because you sat there in the highest office. Because, you know, the Senate is the upper house. No, man, nobody trick you say it's the other place. Yes. And you sat there and commanded the respect that you got at your time. And how was it? How did you manage that? Give me a perspective from that chair.
Well, you know, I mean, it was a challenging endeavor, but it was manageable. And I say challenging because you are dealing with politics, and you are dealing with individuals who have their political agenda. And nothing's wrong with that. And Parliament is a place of debates where there are contending views. And sometimes those contending views get really intense. And as president of the Senate, you get caught in the whole debate. And, you know, I mean, I think some individual went on a stretch and really caused some problems at times. But, you know, I think I was able to manage to really hold my own in light of the circumstances. I guess every time I travel across the country, you know, people have different stories about my tenure in the parliament that they relate.
Well, just to push it forward a little bit, I mean, only recently you got up and you were carrying on and waxing warm about the independence of the Senate, and it ought to be a place and not a rubber stamp, and it's undermining the democracy. Here comes this bill, and you have had no chance to read the bill, and yet they want you to be involved with this. Was that just putting it on, or how serious are you?
No, it was a serious thing. It was a serious thing because, you see, it's a serious bill. A bill that touches on the constitutional rights of individuals to own property. And it have implications for future investment relations in our country.
Talking about Petrojam here.
Yes, this particular bill. So, when I went to Parliament and realized that they were going to table the bill and debate it on the same day, I realized that there was going to be problems. Now, there are individuals like erudite Senator K.D. Knight, who is a stickler for detail and the consummate lawmaker, who never got the opportunity to peruse the bill in detail. And I had a discussion with him, and he was telling me that he was struggling to really look and deal with some of the provisions in the bill because he had to get the opportunity to cross-reference provisions of the bill in order to make sure that it is constitutionally sound. Yes. And based on all of those discussions, I was acting leader for government business at the time in the Senate because Senator Scott Motley was overseas. And so I had to lead out the discussion in terms of launching a strong objection to the bill being tabled and debated same day, because that in of itself was not acceptable in terms of the standing order. The standing order requires that bills be tabled and taken at another time. But what has been happening over when there are really special cases, and for example, you have in the case of the IMF agreement, there were quantitative benchmarks that had to be adhered to. And so, you have to pay attention to time, and provisions were made for those bills to be tabled and debated on the same day. And we sought agreement with the opposition, to make sure that there was an understanding. Yes. In this instance, certainly in my case, I wasn't contacted as the acting leader of government business to indicate that the bill was going to be tabled and debated at the same time and taken to all the stages. I saw a notification which indicated that they were going to be attempting to do so, and I thought it was absolute ridiculous.
All right, can I ask you to hold that note on that ridiculous note? And we'll take a break from Insight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Insight. Our special guest is Senator Floyd Morris. He's a person with a disability. that you wouldn't know. Hearing him speak and looking at him and watching him walk. Why don't you use a cane, Senator? You use Donovan.
Well, I do use the white cane. You know, it's just that it's more convenient. You know, I mean, Donovan is with me, and you know, we are making fast movements to rush into meeting, rush into buildings, and getting on. I mean, so you know, it's much more convenient, and so you know, Donovan is an able support in that regard.
Yes. You saw one time, now you're blind. What do you miss the most?
Well, you know, I mean, seeing the beautiful environment, you know, and also seeing the beautiful ladies. That is something that I miss a lot.
You know, now that you mentioned the lady, I know your wife. How you know that she's so good looking?
You see, they say that a wonderful man will always attract a wonderful woman. Eh?
That was a paid announcement. Floyd Morris. You know, what brought you guys together? This. How did that happen?
Well, you know, she was at UWI when I was there, but it wasn't until we crossed paths at the Andrews SDA Church, where we were members of the same Sabbath school class. She was teacher for the youth group at Andrews SDA Church. And from there, you know, I mean, she was a bit verbose at the time, but...
Matching you?
But, you know, one day her friend, who used to be a worker here at our RGR Gleaner Communications Group as well, Janet Monan Green.
Ah, yes, Janet.
Janet, you know, said to me, you know, Floyd, I mean, you guys worthless enough because you can imagine you allow this beautiful, vivacious young lady to be single, you know. And once I heard that, it clicked in my head.
Yeah.
And I said that I was going to fix it, you know. And by the time I reached home, I called her. She was overseas on an assignment. She was working with Digicel at the time. And, you know, I mean, she said that, look, when I come home, we can go out for lunch or something like that. I'm saying,
True, you don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yes. You know, I mean, went and we had lunch together when she came home, and the rest is history, as they say.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm in a rapid fire section, all right? Because I want to get in a lot of little things that that people say I must ask you. You know, you run 5Ks and things like that?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been running 5Ks for the past 6 or so years. Donovan and I have been partnering. Donovan, we run in the mornings.
Oh.
And we started running on the road circuit for a little while. And, you know, I mean, that has been one of my favorite pastime. I tell people that I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I am not a party animal, you know. Yes. I'm a serious member of the academic community. And yes. So, you know, I spend more of my resources on things that are beneficial to me, but will also help others.
Win-win.
And that is why I am very much involved with the 5K circuit. And when they don't see me on the circuit, everybody is either they're emailing me or calling me or see me on the street and say, but we don't see you at such and such a 5K, you know?
Yes.
So, you know, I mean, it's an integral part of me.
Very good. The issue of the disabled society. You're the spokesman, you're the man, or you're the face, you're the voice of the disabled community. CARICOM has brought you in. What is that? What exactly are you expected to do, Rapporteur?
Well, the CARICOM appointed me last year as the Special Rapporteur on Disability for the region, in which I'm required to, lobby and present the case of persons with disabilities to different government, different administration in the region. And I am required to drive the research agenda to make sure that we, in this advocacy, it is data driven. And so it is tapping into my responsibilities at the University of the West Indies, where I am the director for the Center for Disability Studies. And so I will be partnering with the disabled community throughout the region, along with CARICOM. And there's a monitoring committee to make sure that we heighten the awareness and intensify programs and policies throughout the region for persons with disabilities.
In Jamaica, do you sense that there's a change as it relates to understanding that community, as it relates to setting up the physical? I mean, I look at the roadways that were being fixed the other day, and I was like, ooh, a person with disability could be having problems traversing these spots.
Yes.
Has there been a difference, you think?
Well, in some respects, you have seen some changes, because we are seeing more and more efforts being made to include persons with disabilities in education, for example. And we are seeing greater efforts to make sure that persons with disabilities have access to technology. But there's a lot more work that needs to be done. I mean, the Disabilities Act was passed in 2014, and we are yet to see that legislation being brought into force, because there are a number of things that should have been done and was not done, and I see the government making efforts now to,
for example,
for the effective date of the legislation to be set by the minister, it requires regulation and codes of practice to be in place. And the Ministry of Labor and Social Security is in the process of preparing the codes of practice and the regulation. And I am stepping out of my political hat and giving some support in that regard, because the truth is that I want my brothers and sisters with disabilities to benefit from some of the things that I have benefited from. I have pushed the glass ceiling, so to speak, and used education as a means of transforming my life. And I believe that if I can do it, other persons with disabilities can do it as well. But what must happen is that these social, what I call social rigidities that are there in the society must be dismantled, so that these individuals can be allowed to live normal life,
Yes.
There's no need for a person with a disability. A mother in Moko have a child with a disability, and because, she have a disability, they have to lock them away in their homes. In 21st century Jamaica, no. We want that to change. We want that child to go to school. We want that child to be able to move on to university, get a degree, able to move into a job and produce, own his or her own house, and start a family just like anybody else.
You might not see God's hand in this, but you know, He calls you to lose your sight to open our eyes.
Well, you know, that's why I say in my book, by faith,
Ah,
not by sight.
by faith, not by sight.
Yes.
What that mean?
Because, you know, the truth is that I have managed to achieve all that I have achieved, not by sight, but my absolute faith and belief in God, because I believe that God has allowed some things to happen for His own glorification. And I have to make sure that in all my doing, I mean, I tell people right now, God has brought me this far, and I have been successful in a lot of ways. I want to share those successes with other people with disabilities. I want to make things happen for them. I want to make sure that we have a Jamaica that works for persons with disabilities, where they know that they can go to school, they can go out there, and they can do whatsoever they want and become whosoever they want in our society.
What's next for Emerson? Middle name now. What's next for you? What's your next goal? I mean, you have a PhD and you're now sharing it with the people.
Well, you know,
what's next for you?
I continue to do my work up by the University of the West Indies, which is an integral part of me. The university has been an absolutely wonderful and fabulous institution for me. As a matter of fact, I tell people that the university is the best institution in terms of support for persons with disabilities. Wow. But whilst I'm there and I'm doing that at UWI and I'm supporting the political party that I love very much, the People's National Party, I think the greatest thing for me to be right now is a father. And that is something that is something that
I wonder
I'm
if she's
working.
Watching you, sir. You're working on it.
I'm working on. There's an ad say. I think there's a product that said you're working on it like KFC.
He's working on it. No, I know we'll see the fruits of your labor sometime soon. But I just want to thank you personally for the inspiration that you have given me personally and to the wider Jamaica, and to. You know, we don't see you as somebody limited at all. Yes. I mean, because what other, you know, hurdle is there to cross for you? It's just perhaps maintaining now. Having attained, you now maintain and spread the joy, spread the faith gently, as they say. And I want to thank you, but I know you're taking off to Portland to support Mr. Crawford. Why?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I have to give support to Damien. Damien is not just my political brother and comrade, but he's also my tailorite brother, my butcher brother, and so, you know, we have to join hands and heart and make sure that, you know, he becomes the next member of parliament for Eastport, and he's an excellent candidate, an excellent choice, somebody who has a big heart and a love and a passion for people. You know, he's going into a constituency where, you know, there is multiple educational institutions, and that is something that I know is near and dear to him. And once the people of Eastport elect him as their member of parliament, I believe that they are going to be very proud.
What a pitch. Would you ever go and run in politics, sir?
Well, you know, I never said never, you know, I mean, but I allow God to lead in my life, and wherever He leads, I'll follow.
There you go.
That's my position where these things are concerned.
All right, thank you so much.
Pleasure is mine.
For the inspiration, and that's where we leave it today on Insight. Until next time, Michael Sharp wishing you pleasant viewing.